Last year, Drake did something almost no superstar ever does. He sued his own record label. He claimed the system that made him had turned on him, rigged a public feud, inflated his rivals' numbers, and quietly devalued him the moment he asked for more. The lawsuit went nowhere. Then, months later, the script flipped. Drake is now the one being sued, accused of promoting illegal gambling, using house money to fake wins, and influencing fans to lose real money while he risked nothing. That's when it became clear this wasn't about music. It was about how the system lets you win first. I sat at a roulette table where losing didn't hurt until it did. Drake was there, calm, encouraging, watching me bet bigger with money that was never really mine. By the time I understood how the game actually worked, the wheel was already spinning, and it wasn't waiting for me anymore. I didn't start gambling because I loved the risk. I started because everything else felt like a dead end. I was 22, working nights at a warehouse that smelled like dust and machine oil, 10-hour shifts, steel-toe boots, a badge that didn't even have my real name on it, just a number that got scanned every time I clocked in and out. I told myself it was temporary. Everyone does. But after a while, temporary starts feeling permanent, and that's when you stop telling people what you actually do for a living. Most of my friends looked like they were moving forward, at least online. New cars, trips, apartments that didn't have roommates arguing through paper-thin walls. I knew better than to believe everything I saw, but knowing didn't help much. It still felt like I was standing still while everyone else learned a shortcut I missed. That's when gambling started showing up everywhere. Not the dark, backroom stuff you hear warnings about. I mean ads, clean ones, bright colors, smiling faces. Just for fun. Play responsibly. Influencers placing bets like it was nothing. Celebrities streaming roulette spins and laughing when they lost more money in a minute than I made in a month. Drake was everywhere. Not shouting, not flexing, just calm, relaxed, sitting back while numbers moved on a screen. He'd lose, shrug, smile, win, barely react. It didn't look desperate. It didn't look reckless. It looked controlled, like he knew something everyone else didn't. That's what made it feel safe. The first time I downloaded one of the apps, I told myself it was just entertainment, same as a video game. Same as paying for a movie ticket. They gave me free credits to start. House money. No risk. No pressure. A way to learn how it worked without actually losing anything. I remember staring at the balance, waiting for the anxiety to hit. It didn't. The first few spins barely registered. Red. Black. Red again. I lost. But the number reset like nothing happened. I won. And the balance ticked up in a way that felt unreal. Like points, not money. There was no pain, no consequence, just motion. That's the part no one warns you about. When losing doesn't hurt, your brain doesn't file it as danger. It files it as practice. After a while, the app started nudging me. Bigger bets, faster spins. A message popped up saying I was on a streak. Another offered a bonus if I kept playing. I told myself it was all psychological tricks, but knowing that didn't stop my hand from tapping the screen. I won enough to feel confident, not rich. Confident, that was new. At work, my body still ached the same way. The noise was still loud, the hours still dragged. But now there was something else running in the background of my mind. A quiet calculation. A sense that maybe I wasn't stuck. Maybe I was just early. I started watching the streams more closely. Drake didn't talk much. He didn't explain. He just played. Calm, patient, like the outcome didn't matter because he understood the game on a level I didn't yet. When he said things like, "You're hot tonight," it didn't sound like hype. It sounded like permission. That's when I stopped thinking of it as gambling. It felt more like learning a system. One night, the app unlocked a new room. Private table, higher limits. Same wheel, same rules. It felt exclusive, like I'd earned my way in. The balance on the screen wasn't even mine yet, not really, but I'd started thinking of it that way. I'd earned it. I'd grown it. I told myself I'd stop once I cashed out. I told myself that a lot. The truth is, nothing in my life had felt this responsive before. You press a button, something happens. Immediate feedback, immediate hope. It didn't judge where I came from or how much I made an hour. It just asked how much I wanted to bet next. Looking back, I can see how easy it was to slide into it, how natural, how quiet, no dramatic moment, no warning sign, just a series of small decisions that all felt reasonable at the time. I didn't think I was becoming a gambler. I thought I was finally catching up. If you're listening to this and any of it feels familiar, the pressure, the ads, the way watching someone else win makes it feel normal, I need you to understand something before this goes any further. I didn't lose my money because I was reckless. I lost it because the game taught me how to feel comfortable right before it taught me how to stay. I was already done. That was the thought I kept repeating while the wheel sat still on my screen, motionless for the first time in days. No spins, no prompts, just an empty table waiting for me to decide what to do next. I felt it then, the weight I'd managed to avoid. Not panic, something slower, heavier. The kind of pressure that settles in your chest when the math finally catches up. I thought about rent, about the shift I had in the morning, about how quickly this had gone from just trying something to needing to fix it. I moved my thumb toward the close button. That's when the notification appeared. It didn't buzz or flash. It just slid onto the screen, calm and deliberate, like it had been waiting for this exact pause. Final opportunity unlocked. I stared at it, annoyed more than curious. A second line followed. Make a qualifying deposit to unlock private play. Limited availability. Live roulette. I let out a short breath through my nose. This was the moment everyone talked about. The line you were supposed to recognize. The point where you walked away and told yourself you'd learned something. I almost did. What stopped me wasn't excitement. It was the idea of ending like this. Quietly, with nothing to show for the time I'd put in. No proof I'd understood the game. No sense that I'd left on my own terms. I told myself I'd make one more deposit, not to chase losses, just to see what happened next, just to close the loop. The moment the payment went through, the screen refreshed. The wheel started spinning without me touching it. Black, red, black again. The pace was different now, cleaner. Each result landed decisively without the stutter or lag I'd gotten used to. The app felt attentive again, like it had been waiting for me to commit. A message appeared briefly, then faded. You're eligible. The interface shifted. Everything unnecessary disappeared. No chat, no clutter, no distractions. Just the table, the wheel, and a sense of space that felt quieter than before. Fewer seats, slower transitions. The minimum bet nudged upward without explanation. I placed a bet. The wheel spun longer than it should have, then landed cleanly. The win didn't feel exciting. It felt stabilizing, like a correction. Another spin followed, then another. I wasn't winning wildly. I was being kept afloat. That was worse. I realized I wasn't thinking about leaving anymore. I was thinking about maintaining position, about staying inside whatever bracket this was. The idea of dropping back into the regular tables felt wrong now, like being demoted without warning. Another message appeared. Private lobby unlocked. Waiting players. One, I hesitated. This wasn't the same as the earlier private tables. There was no explanation of how it worked or who the other player was. Just an option to enter or decline. I told myself this was the last threshold, that I'd go in, see what it was, then decide. The lobby loaded slowly. The wheel sat in the center, polished and silent. One seat across the table was already occupied, marked only by a username I didn't recognize. No chat, no movement, just presence. The player placed a bet. I waited, then matched it. Same timing, same color. The wheel spun. We both won. Again. I kept mirroring the other player, not because I thought it guaranteed anything, but because it felt right. Like the rhythm had already been established, and I'd been allowed to step into it late. After a few spins, I noticed something strange. The other player never adjusted, never hesitated. Bets stayed consistent regardless of outcome. Losses didn't slow them down, Wins didn't accelerate them. It wasn't confidence. It was familiarity. A small icon appeared next to the username, something I hadn't seen before. Verified. Official. I leaned closer to the screen, heart rate ticking up just enough to notice. The name resolved as the interface sharpened. Drake. He didn't look at me. Didn't react to the wins. Didn't acknowledge the copying. He placed his next bet with the same calm precision as before, like he'd been doing this long enough that outcomes had stopped mattering. I matched him again. The wheel spun. We won. That's when it hit me, not all at once, but with a clarity that made my stomach tighten. This wasn't a reward. It was alignment. The losses earlier hadn't been the end. They'd been a filter, a pause, a test to see who would leave quietly and who would put something real back on the table just to stay in the room. The lobby stayed open. The wheel kept turning. And sitting across from him, copying his timing without thinking, I understood something I hadn't before. Quitting wasn't something you did when you ran out of money. It was something you missed while trying to prove you belonged. Drake placed another bet. I followed. And whatever I thought that last deposit was for, I finally understood what it actually bought me. Access. I swallowed, throat dry. My fingers hovered over the screen, waiting for his next move like I was afraid to break something if I acted on my own. What happens if I stop? I asked. He smiled faintly, the expression barely forming. Nothing, he said. That's the point. Another spin. This one landed wrong. For the first time since entering the lobby, the loss didn't soften. It didn't reset. It just sat there, unresolved, like the table was waiting to see what I'd do next. I hesitated. Drake didn't. He placed another bet immediately, slightly larger than before. No reaction. No acknowledgement of the loss. I followed him without thinking. The wheel spun. We won. The relief hit me harder than any excitement had earlier. I realized then how tightly my body had been wound, how much of myself was leaning forward, waiting for permission to breathe. Drake glanced at me. You feel that? He asked. That's not winning. That's correction. The word stuck with me. Correction. He explained it like this was something obvious, something I should have known already. How the system didn't punish you for losing. It punished hesitation. How it kept you close by smoothing out the edges just enough to make you trust the rhythm. You put real money in, he said, almost conversationally. That's when it starts paying attention. I felt my stomach drop. I thought this was just play, I said. He nodded. It is, he replied, until it isn't. The wheel spun again, another win. Smaller this time, contained. The balance climbed, but not enough to feel free, just enough to feel dependent. I realized something then that made my hands go cold. I couldn't tell which spins were house money anymore. I asked him how long he'd been doing this. He shrugged. Long enough to know when to stop fighting it. Do you ever quit? I asked. He looked at me fully for the first time. Why would I? He said. I don't play against it. That's when I understood the difference between us. He wasn't here to win. He was here to stay aligned. The wheel kept turning. The lobby stayed sealed. Every time I tried to pull back, even slightly, the losses sharpened. Every time I matched his timing, the system softened again. It wasn't random. It was responsive. I placed a bet a fraction of a second too early. Loss. Drake waited an extra beat before his next move. Win. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The lesson landed cleanly. You see it now, he said finally. The house doesn't mind who's here. It only cares who moves right. I wanted to leave. I could feel it. A real urge this time. Not the shallow version I'd had before. But the thought of stepping out of that rhythm felt like stepping off a moving platform. What happens if I cash out? I asked. Drake's smile faded. You can, he said, but you won't feel the same after. The wheel spun again. I followed him. We won. And somewhere between matching his timing and waiting for his cues, I realized the most unsettling part of all. The game hadn't trapped me. It had taught me how to behave. Drake placed another bet. I didn't even think about whether I should. I just stayed in sync. Because at that point, losing money wasn't the threat anymore. Losing alignment was. The first time I stopped copying Drake, it felt like freedom. I didn't announce it. I didn't make a show of it. I just placed a bet before he did. Slightly different timing, different color. The wheel spun. It landed in my favor. Win. Drake's bet landed wrong. I felt something rise in my chest that I hadn't felt yet in that room. Not relief, not excitement, pride. I told myself I didn't need to mirror him anymore. I'd learned the rhythm. I understood the flow. Whatever alignment he'd been operating in, I'd internalized it. That's how skills worked. You practiced until you didn't need the teacher. Spin after spin, I kept doing my own thing. Red, win. Black, win. The balance climbed higher than I'd ever seen it. Higher than any number tied to my real life. It stopped feeling hypothetical. This was money that could change things. Rent paid ahead. Debt erased. A clean reset. I leaned back, heart racing, hands shaking slightly. This was it. I told myself I'd leave on the next spin. One more bet, just to end it clean. I placed it. Loss. The number dipped, but it barely registered compared to what I still had. I exhaled, almost laughing. Still up, by a lot. Drake placed his usual bet. Calm, familiar, win. I told myself the loss didn't count, that it was part of variance. I'd expected it. I'd planned for it. That's what made this different. I wasn't panicking. One more, I said quietly to myself. Not to Drake, not to the room, just enough to hear it. I won it back. The relief was immediate, intoxicating. I felt justified, like the game had proven me right for trusting myself. I took a sip from the drink I'd poured earlier. I hadn't realized how long it had been sitting there. The alcohol burned, warm, and grounding. One more bet, loss. Drake's bet landed clean again. He didn't look at me. He didn't react. I told myself I was still in control. I'd leave after the next win. That was reasonable, disciplined even. Black, loss. Red, loss. The room felt tighter now, not louder, closer. The wheel seemed heavier, the spin slower. I could feel my pulse in my ears, syncing with the motion on the screen. One more, I whispered again, louder this time, like saying it with conviction would make it true. Win. My chest loosened. I smiled without meaning to. I told myself this was the last one. I meant it. I really did. Drake placed his bet, same as always. Win. You're still ahead, he said casually, as if reading my thoughts. Most people don't leave when they're ahead. I nodded, swallowing. I could feel the exit now. I could see it clearly. Closing the app. Walking away with more than I'd ever had. I hovered over the screen. Then I thought about the losses. How quickly they'd come. How close they'd gotten to cutting into the number that mattered. I told myself I just needed to buffer it a little more, just enough to feel safe. One more bet. Loss. My stomach dropped. I chased it immediately. Loss. The balance shrank faster now, visibly, like something draining. I felt heat crawl up my neck, a pressure behind my eyes. Red or black? Drake asked, finally looking at me. Red, I said, too fast. Loss. My hands were shaking. I told myself I'd gone too far, that I needed to stop now, before it got worse. But stopping felt wrong, like leaving a sentence unfinished. One more bet, just to get back to where I was. Black. Loss. I stared at the number, watching it sink below a line I'd promised myself I wouldn't cross. My throat tightened. The room felt distant, unreal, like I was watching someone else make these decisions. Drake leaned back slightly. This is the part, he said, calm as ever, where people think they're fixing it. I looked at him, desperate now. I just need one good spin. He nodded. That's what everyone thinks. I placed the bet. Loss. The balance emptied out with no ceremony, no warning, no final message, just absence. I sat there, frozen, waiting for something to happen. A reset, a correction, anything. Nothing came. Drake stood, adjusting his jacket. "You were going to leave up," he said, almost kindly. "That's why it had to end like this." "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely there. He met my eyes. "The house doesn't mind losses," he said. "It minds exits." Then the lobby closed. The wheel vanished. And I was left alone, staring at a screen that no longer recognized me, finally understanding that the scariest part wasn't how fast I lost everything, but how many times I told myself one more bet and believed it. The worst part wasn't losing the money. That's what I thought it would be. I imagined the panic, the regret, the hollow feeling in my chest, and those things did come, eventually, but they weren't what stayed. What stayed was the silence after. No wheel, no lobby, no slow build between spins, just my room, exactly how I'd left it. The drink on my desk was warm now, untouched since the last bet. My phone felt heavier in my hand, like it had been holding something back from me and finally let go. I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even feel angry. I kept waiting for my body to react the way it was supposed to, but it never did. It was like my system had already burned through those responses while I was still playing. I checked the app again, even though I knew there was nothing to see. Same result. No balance, no offers, no private rooms, just the front screen, clean and friendly, asking if I wanted to start fresh. That's when it hit me. The game wasn't mad at me. It wasn't punishing me. It was ready to welcome me back. I deleted the app, not dramatically, just pressed and held until the icon disappeared. I told myself that was it, that this was the end of the story, that I'd learned the lesson everyone talks about and managed to walk away before it turned into something worse. But the next day, I kept reaching for my phone, not to reinstall it, at least not at first, just to check, just to make sure it was really gone. My thumb hovered over the same empty space where the icon had been, like muscle memory hadn't gotten the update yet. That's when I started noticing how quiet everything else felt. Life doesn't spin back at you. It doesn't correct itself. You put in effort and wait, sometimes weeks, sometimes months, to see if it mattered. There's no instant feedback, no rhythm, no reassurance that you're doing it right. At work, time dragged again. Conversations felt unfinished. I caught myself zoning out, replaying spins in my head. Not the losses, but the moments right before. That suspended second when anything felt possible. I told myself it was normal. Withdrawal, habit, it would pass. Then I saw a clip online. Drake, laughing lightly, placing a bet like it was nothing. Calm, centered, untouched by outcomes. The comments were full of jokes, admiration, disbelief, people talking about how easy it looked, how controlled. I felt something tighten in my chest, not temptation, recognition. He wasn't doing anything wrong. That's what made it worse. No pressure, no tricks, just presence. Just proof that the system worked differently for some people. That night, I dreamed of the wheel. It didn't stop on red or black. It just kept turning, smooth and endless, like it didn't need an outcome anymore. When I woke up, my heart was racing, and for a split second, I felt the urge to correct it, to do something, anything, to bring the feeling back under control. That's when I understood what I'd actually lost, not the money, the calibration. The game had taught me how to exist inside it, how to time myself, how to feel safe inside uncertainty, how to mistake repetition for control. And now that it was gone, everything else felt wrong by comparison. I don't think Drake was lying when he talked about alignment. I think he was warning me. The house doesn't chase you after you leave. It doesn't threaten you or remind you of what you lost. It just waits for the moment when real life feels slow enough, quiet enough, uncertain enough that you start missing the rhythm. Because the truth is, gambling doesn't ruin you all at once. It teaches you how to stay comfortable while you disappear. If you're listening to this and you've ever told yourself one more bet, or just to see what happens, or I'll stop when I'm up, I want you to hear this clearly. The most dangerous part isn't the loss. It's how reasonable every decision feels right up until the end. The wheel is still spinning somewhere. The lobbies are still open, and the house doesn't need to call you back. It already knows exactly what you're waiting for.